Donnie, it says you're live. There's nobody in the channel yet, though, so don't say anything. We got to see if anybody shows up.
Okay. We'll wait.
We are on the roof in beautiful historic downtown Jefferson, South Carolina. You have a thumbs up already, but nobody's watching. Oh, wait a minute. There's a couple people that have popped in. There are a couple people joining you on the roof. Oh, we're up to 3 people now.
We got 3 people.
We're now down to 2 people. Somebody dropped off. I don't know. Apparently they weren't happy with what they were seeing. What are you? He won't relax for a minute. Look, he's back to work already. You're supposed to be doing a question and answer session.
I'm waiting on people to come ask me a question.
I wonder if the reception. Hey, Mac Customs, we see you.
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
We're waiting to see if we get a few more people in here, and then we'll start talking.
But if y'all got a question, y'all go ahead.
Yeah, if you got a question for my brother Donnie, go ahead and shoot. And if we see it, we'll try to get him to answer. Hey, T. Barrett.
T. Barrett.
That's what it says. Yeah. Hey, look and see if the reception's any good on your phone. Mine might be crap. We've only got 2 people watching. People have joined and left, though.
I've got 3 bars.
No, I mean like if you watch my video, does it look good?
T. Barrett, what's it look like?
Matt Custom says, hope you guys are having a great weekend. Navag Swerdna says, hey, dudes.
What's going on?
What's going on? Hey, is the video quality decent out there, people? We can't tell. I'm using my phone, which I don't know what the signal's like here. They say looks great. Boy, that's great.
We're good.
Look how happy Donnie looks. Hey, they say you look good, Donnie.
Oh.
Man, he's already happily engaged. All right, so we're doing a question and answer. So if anybody has any questions, let us know. Hey, Mike Oliver. Good day, it says. He says, good day, brothers Donnie and Ronnie.
Good day.
So what are you doing on the roof, Donnie?
I've got a hole. Well,
now, wait a minute. What the hell am I doing on the roof?
we've got a...
Holy moly, I don't even remember getting up here.
We got a patch.
Did you drug me again?
Yes. We got a patch. We had a little minor leak here we had to fix. So that's what we're working on.
Which roof are you standing on?
The post office.
The old post office. Should we give them a tour of the town at the front of the building?
Yeah. Don't step on my wet stuff.
Okay, I got to carefully get past this wet stuff. We're going to give you a tour of the town from the roof, people. So you know what we're talking about and where we're at. Now don't get too close. Don't get too close to the edge. All right, Donnie. So give them a tour of the town.
Okay.
Wait, if you come this way, maybe you can see better and you won't have to worry about.
Let's start over here.
That's the old bank.
The old bank. Now that's from like the turn of the century.
1902, I believe that was built.
The one beside it, we call it the jewelry store, but I don't know what the hell it was.
Okay, explain to them what it is.
The bank is a square, okay? And this next building is an L that goes in. It's made onto it.
Uh-huh. Mac Customs, don't worry, we're good 5 feet back from the edge. We're not going to fall off.
Yeah, we ain't falling.
Mike says it's the Christmas Parade Street. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
It's Main Street in Jefferson. So this bank here, I'll tell him my part, Donnie.
Okay.
See this one with the 2 big columns? That is the bank. It has the 2 sets of windows. This is a different building. This bank was opened in like 1902 and it was successful. There was nothing really down here.
We're up top. We're live.
So this bank was built in like 1902, something like that. And then it was built by the Miller family, which owns the mansion on the corner there. There's a big, nice house on the corner. And then they opened the Miller and Miller department store, which was this building, and they built it after the bank. But if you look, the windows are at a different height, right? But they seamlessly attached it to the bank using the same brick and everything. So that's the old Miller and Miller department store. We call it the jewelry store because the front window is one of those big old acrylic, the front door is one of those big old acrylic glass or acrylic doors that looks like used to be on an old jewelry store.
Okay, then we'll go to the next one.
Donnie's done talking about
The
that.
next two buildings are Riley Furniture Building.
Rayleigh,
Right there.
the old Rayleigh furniture buildings. So in the 50s and 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s,
2000.
up to the 2000s. Yeah, that was the Rayleigh furniture store. So it was a big building with both the things. Now, Donnie, did you know that the Nicholson brother, the Nicholson and that's where they were originally? So that's the old furniture store. Now that was built, it's attached really to this. So it was the next building built, obviously. This facade has been changed downstairs. Both of these have been changed too, but originally all three of those looked identical. So there is an old picture of downtown taken from down that way, facing this way, that shows those buildings, and that looks like just a big continuation of that building. So it's been changed a lot over the years. The facade of it and everything's been changed.
The next one, there's a bunch of different stories on these next two.
Yes, yeah.
Some people say that's this one with the honor.
Hello from Austria.
Hello from Austria.
Karl-Heinz Koningsecker. I hope I didn't ruin your name.
That one, some people say that was the laundromat, but my understanding that one was the laundromat.
I think both were a laundromat at one point or the other.
And then this one over here was a drugstore way back when.
So these two here, you notice the top is the same. So that was one building, but it had two fronts, right? It had one roof. At one point, there was a fire downtown. The laundromat, which was here, caught on fire. I may have it wrong. May have been the pharmacy, something. This building caught on fire. It burnt the entire top of the building out. So if you look real close, about right there up, the bricks have all been replaced, right? So that whole thing burnt down and it caught this one on fire. Well, if you go in this building, this side of it, the rafters are still all charred and everything from the fire.
I've seen that personally. I know that for a fact. Them rafters are charred.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this green building, that's the building that we showed a couple posts on with the top of it blowed out. That was, everybody in town says it was a car dealership.
Yeah.
But it looks like it was a cotton warehouse.
Hey there, fellers. X says, hey there, fellers.
Hello, how are y'all?
Crossbones, Mr. Crossbones. Yeah, so that building there is the one that the tornado destroyed.
You can see the column still in that one side there.
Yeah, see this little thing? That's all that's left of the original building. And there was an alley between this building and that building. So it went over to about here. So in 1958, there's a big tornado came through town, came up that way, went right through the building, destroyed it, ripped the roof off of it, threw it all the way across the street, and it landed over there in the yard of that house, the side yard of that house, okay? And so it sat like that for years and years and years, and we didn't know when they rebuilt it, but we found an old picture from 1968, finally, we just recently found it, that showed that it hadn't been rebuilt in 1968. So from 58 to 68 at least, the building was not there.
There's somebody inscribed their name in there on the concrete. I believe it was 76 or something.
Something, it's in the 70s.
So they might have rebuilt it in the 70s.
So Mike says, what was that big building now marked town of something?
Town of Jefferson.
Luckily, Mike, we were just getting to that one. That's the next one.
That one, way back when, was the Nicholson building. It was I believe it was a mortuary at one time.
Yeah.
And it was a dry goods store. Along with the right-hand side of it was a movie theater in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
The left-hand side was where the furniture store started. It was Rayleigh's Furniture.
In the early 50s.
In the early 50s.
We think that building was built. Rave Track says, is that the clock you repaired in the distance there? It is. That's the very one. We think that building was built, the big one we're talking about here. We think, I originally thought that was built in 1920 because I found a deed from 1920 where one guy bought it, or it might have been 22, where Mr. Nicholson bought it. And then in the paper, it was January of 22, I think. And then in the paper a few months later, he was saying he had a big grand opening with his new store. But we think he was talking about his grand opening in that store. So what happened was, hey, Mike Gailey, he says, hey, Ronnie and Donnie. The Mr. Miller that owned the house down here and owned all the property downtown, right? Mr. Miller, his daughter married Mr. Nicholson's son. And about the time that they got married, Mr. Miller sold Mr. Nicholson that property right there. There wasn't a building on it, and that was in 1920 or something like that.
Was the wood building still on it at that time?
I don't know. So there was an old picture of a wood building on Main Street that was Mr. Miller's store, and I think it was right through there somewhere. So it may have actually been on that property. And so he sold it to old man Nicholson because his son and Mr. Miller's daughter had just been married and all that. He says Millersville. Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't call it Millersville. Didn't they say originally it was called Miller's Mill or something like that? Miller's Mill or something? Maybe.
Something like that. Miller.
So anyway, that building, so we thought it was built in 1920 and 1922. But if you look at that old picture of downtown, and it's floating around. I'll have to put it in a video or something. There's an old picture of downtown, and there's a bunch of Model T and old cars parked in front of the bank, right? Well, if you look, I took that picture and I put it on a Model T forum, the collectors forum, right? And the people that are all into the old cars, they said, hey, wait a minute, some of those cars are from 1926, 1927, and that building's not in the background. So there's no way it was built before like 26 or 27, but we can't really tell for sure. So we're just guessing maybe 1930 or so. So the gentleman opens it, and in 1930, I think 34, the old man Nicholson sells it to his son and his daughter-in-law, and moves out of town. He moves to Pageland, about 10 miles that way, right? Next year, so the son that owns it, Mr. Nicholson, and his wife, Miss Nicholson, who was Miss Miller, are living in the house down there, the big mansion, right? So here's the bank that's loaning everybody money. There's the mansion. He's walking to work right there, right? Every day. He has a massive heart attack and drops dead a year later. So in 1935, he passed away. So Miss Nicholson, his wife, his young wife, can't keep the business running. And so she loses it at bankruptcy, and they sold the building at the county courthouse for like, I think it was $5,000 way back then or something like that.
Which was probably a ton of money.
Yeah. And so they lost that building. So that was the Nicholson department store for like 4 years or something like that. So it's sold to somebody. We don't really know what they did with it. But in 1949, there was a gentleman in Pageland, which is about 10 miles that way, named Van Lingle Mungo. And Van Lingle Mungo was a baseball player. I think he played for the Brooklyn Dodgers. He was a pitcher, I believe. But he was supposedly one hell of a baseball player. Well, anyway, he was the kind of the hometown guy in Pageland. So whenever he came back, he opened up a movie theater called the Ball Theater because he was a baseball player. They said, where is the saloon? We'll get to the saloon. So Van Lingle Mungo opened up a movie theater in Pageland called the Ball Theater. And then, I don't know if he did it in 49 or what, but he bought this building in 1949 and he turned the right side of it into a movie theater. And so he owned it for just like a year and a half, and it was called the Ball Theater. So we had heard, a local gentleman told us that he remembered seeing that the Ball Theater was painted on the side of it. And everybody always said, oh yeah, it's the old theater building. And I looked it up, and sure enough, Van Lingle Mungo owned it at some point, who also owned the Ball Theater in Pageland. So I thought, well, it probably was a movie theater, but we couldn't prove it, right? And we just recently found a picture from a local gentleman, one of the Millers, by the way, one of the descendants of the Millers, who had a picture of the side of the building, and sure enough, at the top on the other side, it said the Ball Theater in the picture from 1968. So this right side here was actually a movie theater, and we finally confirmed it. After all these years, Donnie, we figured it out.
15 years searching.
So then it was bought by a guy named Bill Stallings, who was a real character, and he ran a salvage store where he would sell like old bathtubs and doors and building materials and stuff.
Basically, he went in and bought buildings that had been burnt.
Yeah.
Merchandise that had been on fire.
Yeah, stuff like that.
So,
And he would sell it. And so when he bought this building, he had this real peculiar eccentricity, even worse than Donnie. You know, Donnie's weird. He's even worse than Donnie. This guy was like very weird, right? So he didn't like windows. I don't know why, but he didn't like windows. So he bricked up the front of the building. So if you look really close, I wonder if this will let me zoom. You know what? It will let me zoom. Yep. Do you see how the bricks change about halfway up? These are the original bricks. These bricks are the ones that Mr. Stallings added. Mike says that windowless metal bit someone built into the side of the old theater would be a good place to stash something. So he bricked up over the facade, the original facade of the building. He just put bricks over it with a weird door in the front. The original facade is still in the building behind the bricks. So if we ever tear down the bricks,
we still got the facade.
It'll look like it originally looked. So one of these days we will do that. So he had it for many, many years, and then he basically abandoned it. That's a funny story too, but we don't have all day. And then some other people bought it, and we eventually ended up buying it. So we actually own that big building. So
the next one is the grocery store.
Yeah, that's the grocery store that we're working on, and the flower shop next to it.
The flower shop next to it.
Is built. So in 1958, big tornado comes through. There was a building there that was kind of a smaller building. They think was like a gas station.
Everybody says it was a gas station.
But somebody said they thought it was a flower shop before that.
I didn't hear
or
that.
Something. But anyway, so there's the Gnomesteader. He made it
Gnomesteader.
all the way from Alaska. So we've got Austria and Alaska at the same time. Heck yeah. We're worldwide, people. Mr. Skullbone, Crossbone said, which one of you is the mayor? That's him just driving by in his truck. There he is.
Yep, that is the mayor.
Is that Gene?
No.
Oh. So the tornado comes through, tears down a building in 58, and it tears up like every freaking, Skull and Crossbone says he's from Hawaii. It tears up the front of every building in town. And so they tear down that little building that was there. And then in 1962, they built the grocery store and the flower shop. And there were a few things over the years, and then we finally bought it very inexpensively late last year. And we've been fixing it up. So that's that one.
The next one is Parts House now. And it used to be a medicine, what am I trying to think of? Pharmacy.
Pharmacy. So that was a pharmacy at one point. 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 They like selling drugs down here. Now, tell them, they asked where the saloon was.
Well,
tell them the story about this building right here. The green one. Do you know it?
No, not good enough.
Okay, so the Nicholson family we were talking about. And by the way, I'm not saying anything bad about any of these families. These are all local people, and they still live here. So the families still live here. The Millers still live here. The Nicholsons still live here. So the story goes that one of the Nicholson sons, remember it was P.A. Nicholson and Sons that opened that store and had a store over there and a couple other places. So one of his sons gets in a feud with the Gregorys downtown. Now, ironically, the Gregorys own this building right now. so they get in a feud. The Gregorys and the Nicholsons are in a feud in the 1920s. Okay? Now, this is old school outlaw stuff. Wicked Cool Steve said he's happy he caught us live.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wicked Steve. You know, you're not as wicked as you say you are. You're a pretty cool guy. Oh, I said Wicked Cool. So the Nicholsons and the Gregorys are feuding, and they say it was because the Nicholson kid.
Hopefully he don't hit your truck. Nope. He gonna stop.
They say it's because the Nicholson kid got in an argument at a baseball game in Pageland and was getting beat up. And so he looked over to the Gregory guy and he said, "Hey man, ain't you from Jefferson?
Yeah.
Man, why don't you help me, man? I'm getting beat up."
Can't help you.
And the Gregory boy told him, "Hey man, you started your own fight. I ain't gonna get involved," and wouldn't help him when he was getting jumped by these guys, right? So the Nicholsons and the Gregorys were sworn enemies, right? So here's the rest. So now, from what I understand, both families are good people. So I'm not saying either one of them was at the wrong, and it was 100 years ago, so who cares, right? So supposedly,
still care.
yeah, they may still care. That's why I'm being very cautious about this. So supposedly, the Gregory guy was down here at the pharmacy one night. This is months later. He's down here at the pharmacy because they had a bar in the pharmacy. So back in the day, you could drink at the pharmacy, you know. And the Nicholson kid was minding his own business, from what I hear. And his wife, you know what she told him?
Go to the store and get me some milk.
Go to the store and get me some milk for the baby. So he drove his Model T down here and he parked it right there in front of that store, right? And he got out and he went inside just to get milk. And when he went in there, the Gregory guy was about half drunk sitting at the bar. And he said, "You son of a bitch, I knew I was gonna catch you downtown." And
I'm gone.
And he said, "You wait till I go get my gun out of my car." And so the Gregory guy comes running outside to his Model T and gets a gun out of the car and goes back inside and aims it at the Nicholson kid. So the Nicholson kid, they all get scared to death because the guy's drunk. And so the pharmacist runs out the back door of this building. And as he's running out the door, this drunk is shooting at the Nicholson kid. And the Nicholson guy runs out behind him and gets shot, from what I hear, in the back as he's running out the back door of that building. And dies. Yeah. So at the time, his family was running the store in this building. So he died right behind this building, and his family was running the store in this building. Now, his dad was an undertaker.
Supposedly he did the damn...
No, I think it was right there, because this building wasn't built yet. We used to think it all happened in that building, but it wasn't built yet, so it was in this building. Yeah, it's like Mike says, Wild West. It's like that, man. It's a southern town. It's in 1925 or so. Stuff was crazy.
Well, I heard in the 40s, right on the other side of this building, there's a gas station.
Yeah.
They used to project movies on this wall.
Yeah, so this wall that we're looking at, but on the other side of the building, it's open.
They used to project movies over there, and the guy was sitting, a bunch of people sitting out there, and they...
The fact said, if you, I'm saying Nivaj, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He said, if you Google Nicholson, you find a lot of stories, including the largest gun confiscation in South Carolina. Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
That wasn't long ago.
That was like 5 years ago or something.
Yeah, that was over in Pageville.
Steve says Ronnie has a million stories. Look, Steve, every good story deserves a little embellishment, okay?
So they're all sitting over watching the video, or movie, and
So wait a minute. This building, the wall on the other side, big old brick wall. They used to project movies on it in the 50s.
Yes.
Okay.
And this guy...
Now you would drive up and just watch the movie for free, I guess.
Yeah, everybody's sitting around watching the movie, talking smack and drinking their little booze. So this Indian is going up behind this damn cowboy. He's getting ready to cut his throat. Well, the boy sitting there pulls his gun out and shoots the side of the wall to try to help him out.
Yeah. So supposedly, somebody told us they were there the night that one of these guys was drunk and shot the freaking screen trying to...
Not the screen, the side of the
building. Side of the building, trying to shoot the Indian. So anyway, yeah, there's lots of stories about this town. There's a bunch more too. What else should we tell them about? That's that side of the street. You can't really see this side of the street.
Yeah.
But we're standing on the old post office. It was built in, we think, 1923, something like that. No, a little earlier than that. Because we found the deed where the guy that owned this building told the guy that built this building, he gave him a deed to half of the wall and said, "You can put your beams in my wall, but they can't go more than 8 inches in."
So
wicked cool. Steve says, you guys own this building yet?
This building we're standing on?
Yes.
Absolutely. This building that I'm standing on, Ronnie's standing on a different one. I'm standing on this one. It was the grocery store.
Yep, it was the grocery store.
So it is a
it's like a boutique.
Boutique.
Yes.
Now this building.
He's going over to the third building.
It's a different building, and it was part of the grocery store also. And it is now a photography studio. And
Yeah.
you just seen
Yeah, that was Brandy that was coming in.
The lady that runs it.
Now that little, so it's 3 buildings. That one, supposedly back in the 50s, this was the post office, this was the grocery store, and this was the guy that owned the grocery store. His sister ran a sewing shop out of that store. Pretty cool.
So see if they can see that wall right on Emily's there, where the tornado pushed the wall back.
Oh yeah, the little front facade there.
Front facade's laying back.
Yeah.
Nobody's fixed it.
I was going to tell them about. Oh yeah. So the tornado.
Tornado.
When the tornado came through town, we were in here working on this building 15 years ago. And this old gentleman came by and was walking down the sidewalk and stopped in to talk to us. And I believe it was Mr. Ed Miller, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
Okay. So back when the tornado hit in 1958, his father ran a pharmacy in this building. So there was once a pharmacy there and once a pharmacy there. So in 1958, Mr. Miller was a kid, and his dad ran the pharmacy in there. And it was right about 5 o'clock, and he said, hey, his dad told him, hey, go across the street and buy a chicken so we can take home for your mom so she can cook dinner. So the little boy runs across the street, and he goes in this middle building here and buys a chicken. Now, I didn't think to ask him if it was a live chicken or a frozen chicken. That would have been, you know.
Well, it couldn't have been a frozen chicken if they was gonna have it for dinner.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so in my mind, it's a chicken in a cage. That would make a better story. I may just from now on say it was a chicken in a cage. He may still be around. Maybe I could ask him if I see him again. But anyway, you talked to him a couple years ago, so he may still be around. So anyway, he ran over and he got the chicken, and he ran back across the street. And he said, right as he was going in the door, it looked real dark. And it was right after 5 o'clock. And he said everything looked real dark, and he didn't know what was going on. So he ran in the door, and his dad said, get down, get down. And so they laid down in the aisle of the pharmacy between the shelves. So in the front part of the building, there were these shelves, right? And he laid down in the aisle with his dad, and they heard this loud noise. And he said it sounded like a freight train was like right next to him. And he said it just scared the hell out of him. And he laid there, and all of this, the whole building started shaking. And all of the stuff on the shelves fell down on top of them, but it was a pharmacy, so it was all like little boxes or little bottles, and it didn't hurt or anything. It was just traumatic, you know? And he said that it lasted for a few minutes, and they got up and they were perfectly fine. They didn't get hurt, right? And they came outside and they looked out the door. And the man says, why did the possibly frozen chicken cross the road to avoid the tornado?
I don't know.
Yeah. No, that was the joke. But anyway, they come outside and they look out the door, and this whole building has been destroyed. The tornado went right through that building, 30 feet from them. And the reason the stuff fell off the shelves is because there's a, hey Steve, he says hello from Mississippi. The tornado, there's an aerial photo. The next morning, a helicopter came out and took pictures of downtown. It's actually, the photo is on Donnie's community page on his website. I mean, on his YouTube. They came out the front door, and this whole building had been torn out. And if you look at the aerial photo, the back of the building, the roof had been ripped off. So that tornado came in the building, and the wind was in the room with them, blowing all the stuff off the shelves, but they lived through it because they laid on the ground. That tornado was so bad, nobody died though, because it was shortly after business closed, and most people weren't even downtown. And downtown is where it hit the worst. So it screwed up a bunch of buildings down here. But within a week in the newspaper, it said that they'd already fixed all of the buildings, with the exception of that one. So they had went by and replaced all the broken glass and fixed all the broken doors and everything. And this building that we're standing on, this middle one, the whole facade was torn out of it that they redid. So that's our Ed Miller story. That's a good one too.
Anybody got any questions for me? Let's get off this roof.
Steve said, oh, good content, wicked cool. He's talking to Mr. Wicked Cool.
Mr. Wicked Cool.
We'll wait and see if anybody pops up a couple questions, and then we'll get off the roof. We're going on right at 30 minutes live here, Donnie, on the roof.
On the roof, 30 minutes live. That Mississippi, how's the weather down there?
How's Mississippi doing? Wicked Cool Steve says, what buildings you guys working on now?
We're in the jail.
We're in the jailhouse now.
We're in the jailhouse.
I told him once or twice to stop playing cards and shooting dice.
Yep.
He said, cool water tower. Tell him about the water tower, Donnie. Donnie's pissed about this water tower.
That water tower, I'm highly pissed off about. They just redid it, okay?
They painted it.
They painted it, they sandblasted it, they did everything. They put new stencils, all that shit on there, and you can't see none of it from downtown.
Yep, they put it where you can see what it says from way up the road or way up that way. When you're downtown, you can't read the water tower. Can you believe that?
You can't, all you can read is if it's full or empty.
The Gnomesteader said he likes the In the Jailhouse movie and song. He's probably talking about, oh brother, where art thou?
Y'all, if y'all hadn't checked out the Gnomesteader, y'all need to go over and check
Yeah,
him
go
out.
check out the Gnomesteader's channel, people.
He's pretty cool. He's trying to get a cabins done real cheap, and how to start a fires and.
Steve said we're on our 4th season of the week. Last week was in the 30s, now it's in the 60s. Yeah, that's kind of how it was here.
Well, I'm glad y'all made it through it.
Yeah, the Gnomesteader is building, he's up in Alaska roughing it and trying to help people that need affordable housing. And he's not doing it the usual way. He's building domes and stuff. Mike says he's sub. Well, thanks, Mike. We appreciate it. We're going. Tatman Dan says, "What's the next building to buy?" We can't tell him.
We can't tell you that. If we tell you that,
then the price goes up.
Yeah, everybody in town.
We can't tell you. But we'll show you one more building as we get off the roof. This house back here. Let's go over to this side so we can show them the yard. We got to carefully walk over this way. Why are we walking so carefully, Donnie?
If you step on these ribs, if you put your weight on that rib, you'll splay it out. When you splay it out, it won't seal.
Yeah.
And I've had to go through here and seal every one of these ribs because people don't know how to walk on them. And if you just walk, you can walk with your heels and you're fine. Just don't step on the rib.
All right, I'm gonna show y'all something special, but you're gonna have to wait a little while. See this? See how there's a yard right here between the buildings? So we're on Main Street. There's the sidewalk on Main Street. There is a yard with no building. So why is there a yard with no building? It's because it's the front yard of that house. There's a house on Main Street. That house is from the 1700s, if you can believe it. This part here in the front was added later, but that part in the middle there is an old, like a log cabin. The walls are made of logs. And they added this, they added something on the back and everything, but this is the front yard of it. It's seen better days, okay?
And we butchered these trees more than once.
Steve said he had to patch a tin roof yesterday for the same reason. So that house, there is a photo I'll put on Donnie's, his My Brother Donnie community page where you can put up pictures. There's a photo of that house from the 1800s with all of the people sitting out in front of it. And there's a little walkway out to Main Street, out to the sidewalk. It's unbelievable. So what happened was, Mr. Miller, who owned the big mansion over there, sold some guy all this property over on this side of the street. And the guy had his house there. And then he sold off little pieces of land in front of his house that people started building buildings on. So he never sold his front yard because that was how he walked to his house. He would park out on the street and walk up the sidewalk to his house. So it's kind of weird that there's a one building that was never built. All right, folks. Well, we hope you enjoyed it. Tell them what to do, Donnie.
Yo, subscribe to the channel if you hadn't already. Give us a thumbs up for filming. How many people we got on there?
35 right now.
Give all of you. Punch thumbs up real quick. Come on, help me out.
Oh, you're getting some. You're up to 14. Let's see if anybody, some people are watching on their TV. It's not easy to do. Oh, you got 15 now. Kirk says, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, you're up to 19. Oh, well, that's pretty good. El Rano says done. Thanks. Ed Rano. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed. Come on, give me some more thumbs up, thumbs up.
You got a thumbs down and then a thumbs up. That worked good.
On the next one, y'all.